All right, I'm going to show you how to do the incredible journey. So you're going to start out on slide 1. So you're going to open up the slide deck, the incredible journey game. You're going to be a water molecule that takes a trip through the water cycle. You're a water molecule traveling through the water cycle, but this is not your ordinary water cycle. Imagine what it would be like. Will you condense into a small area with other water molecules? Will you crawl as you filter through the ground? Will you be consumed and excreted by animals? Roll the dice for an adventure around the water cycle. Get the travel log in Google Classroom to document your adventure. In Google Classroom, you have a link to the travel document. It looks like this, the Incredible Journey Travel Log. When you roll the dice, you're going to start in one specific location. The dice will tell you which location you start. Since this is your starting location, this is the beginning of your journey. You do not need to write where you see the blue colors. Okay, that is a space that, since it's the beginning of your journey, you don't need to describe how you got there. Okay. All right, so here is the page that you need to get to start your journey. You have an app. There's a link here. Click to roll the die. Takes you to an app to roll some dice, a digital dice rolling app. You only need one die. Okay, here's the tricky part. It's not a very consistent website in getting down to the one die. So you have these, use one dice, two dice, three dice. I'm going to click on all three. This has been the most successful way for me to get just one dice. I'm going to roll the dice. That gives me 3. So what I want to do is unclick the first one. I want to unclick the second one. I'm going to roll the dice to see if that gives me only one die. And sure enough, it did. So that has worked a couple times for me. So try clicking all 3 and then unclicking the first 2. Click roll dice, and hopefully you only get one die here. Okay, so my official first roll is a number 1. So let's see where I'm going to start. So I'm going back to the slide deck, and I've got these options of the dice that take me to different places. So I'm going to click on the number 1 here. It took me to clouds. So that's where I'm starting as a water molecule. I formed when water vapor in the atmosphere condenses and forms water droplets. Water is moved to another location when clouds release water in form of precipitation. So now I am going to go to my travel log. I know that I'm starting as a cloud. So I'm going to type here cloud. That is the beginning of my journey. I do not need to write anything in the other 2 columns. I'm going to go back to my dice. I'm going to roll again. Let's see where I go next. I've rolled a 4. So I go back to my slide. Here I am in a cloud. Now, clicking on number 4, I have gone into groundwater. So I've gone from a cloud to groundwater, to become groundwater. Okay, since I rolled a 4, I have gone to become groundwater. So that tells me precipitation enters the ground through infiltration of the soil. Water can also infiltrate the ground from rivers, lakes, and melting ice. I also can get into the ground through animals. So since I came from a cloud, it would be precipitation. So the next column, so I first put groundwater. That's my location now. My mode of transportation was precipitation. So I can't get from a cloud to the ground without becoming precipitation. So gravity pulled me down out of a cloud. I hit the ground. Now we learned in lesson 1 that we enter the ground through infiltration, right? So I'm going to describe how I got into the ground. Gravity pulled me down from the cloud. I entered the ground through infiltration. Okay, so that's just a description of how I got from the cloud to becoming groundwater. Gravity pulled me down from the cloud. When I hit the ground, I entered the ground through infiltration. Okay, now where do I go next? I'm going to roll my dice. And I rolled a 4. And that put me into plants. So now I am part of a plant. Okay. The description says water enters plants through their roots after infiltration of the soil. So it makes sense if I'm in the ground that I might be going up into a plant. Water is released to the atmosphere through transpiration or decomposition. Okay, so how did I get from the groundwater into the plant? What was the mode of transportation? This would be consumption. So I entered the plant through the roots. So the roots consumed me. All right, so description of how you moved from one location to the next. I entered the plants through the roots. All right, let's see what happens to me from here. So how do I get from the plant to somewhere else? So we're going to roll the dice. And I rolled a 5. So let's see where I go from here. An animal. So being in a plant, how would I get into an animal? Water enters animals when they drink. Well, since I'm in a plant, the animal must have eaten the plant that I was in. And then water can be released to the atmosphere when an animal breathes or urinates. Okay, so an animal. So again, this one would be consumption. Okay, the animal ate the plant. So we'll say the animal ate the plant that I was in. All right, let's roll again. And I rolled a number 1. And that takes me to a lake. So I'm going to type in lake. Now, how did I get from an animal to a lake? Well, let's see. Water enters a river from precipitation and runoff, groundwater flowing from a spring. Those are some examples, but since I was in an animal, I would have to be part of the animal's waste to get out of the animal to get into the lake. All right, so that would be the mode of transportation. So a description of how you moved from one location to the next. The animal urinated. Let's spell that right. He out, and I was runoff. I could say became runoff into a lake. Okay, so from the lake, let's see where I go. Where's my last destination? Number 1. So I'm going to click on 1. I went back into an animal, maybe a fish. All right. All right, that was consumption. Okay. Again, the animal drank me up, and that's how I got into the animal. All right, and that's it. That's all you need to do for the Incredible Journey. The last step here is to use the water cycle travelogue to create a diagram of the water cycle, either in Google Drawing or on paper, and then upload it to this document. So I will upload my picture onto the second page, and your teacher will show you how to do that.